We need to be working towards creating sustainable communities and sustainable societies. One of the first steps, and maybe one of the most profound and important steps, is to relocalise. And a good place to start with this is relocalising our food systems.
The critical issue today is how to build and nurture sustainable communities. To create sustainable communities and sustainable societies is really the central challenge of our time.
We really need to be rethinking the way in which we produce food, distribute it, and the decisions we make about consumption.
A sustainable society needs to be fueled by solar energy, and indeed it has become clear over the last few decades that our current system of fossil fuels is patently unsustainable because of the connection with carbon and CO2 and climate change. So we need to move from the fossil fuel age to the solar age.
We now have the scientific evidence that shows to us that climate change is in fact a reality and is going to pose significant social and environmental problems into the future. And food and localising food is such an important part of addressing climate change and looking to simplify our lives and to live in ways that are more environmentally responsible.
The distance our food travels, the amount of embodied water in it, the amount of embodied energy, and also the ecological footprint of our food is enormous. Our food systems are unsustainable.
The average wage that a coffee farmer is receiving from the sale of coffee in Uganda is about equivalent to $5 Australian a year. That's not enough to send children to school, that's not enough for basic health care, it's not enough to be sure that you have a reasonable roof over your head. But at the same time, Australians are paying $4 for a cup of coffee.
Well, certainly local food has a lot of health benefits, particularly because of the fact that the less we need to transport the food, the less we actually lose the nutritional content of that food. For example, as soon as we pick a food or pick produce, we tend to lose a lot of vitamin C, which is a very unstable vitamin.
The more we connect with food, the more we question how it's grown, where it's come from, and the impact that it's having.
We're eating food that we don't necessarily know under what conditions it's been grown, and particularly with things like genetically engineered seeds and now nanotechnologies being applied to the food system, there's more reason than ever to want to know where your food comes from and to want to know what you're putting into your body.
Sustainable societies have at their foundation a sustainable food system. To recreate this, we need to learn from nature, from cultures of sustainability, and from societies that have successfully adapted in the face of crisis.
In an ecosystem there is no waste, that what is waste for one species is food for the next.
The traditional culture of Ladakh, or Little Tibet, in the northernmost part of India, is one of sustainability, beauty and simplicity. It is from societies like this that we can learn a great deal in our transitioning towards a post-carbon society. Everything came from the earth and was returned to it. Understanding of and connection to community and the local environment were at the core of their success. As we are looking to address issues of peak oil and climate change, it is important to look to societies that have experienced a crisis situation. Cuban society has inspired the world with its ability to adapt to critical fuel shortages and find new ways to feed its people through relocalisation and urban agriculture. All vacant spaces in the city were turned to food production: rooftops, balconies, parks, schools, roadsides. People were resourced with tools, plants and information. One of the key lessons from looking to sustainable cultures and places like Cuba is to relocalise, and there's a rapidly growing movement around the world to do this.
The design of our cities and towns could benefit from incorporating agriculture into its urban and peri-urban areas.
A sustainable city will be one that embraces sustainable food systems and restores and recognises the urban metabolism, returning nutrients and water from urban populations back to the landscape in and around the city to grow food for the people living there. There are urban agriculture zones through the heart of Ljubljana, Slovenia. Many people grow their food here in allotments and others trade their surplus at the daily downtown markets. These urban agriculture areas also provide important recreational and habitat corridors that weave the city together. In the winding streets of Veliko Tarnovo, Bulgaria's old capital, every space and corner is used to grow food, and flocks of animals are tended in the open spaces. In Hong Kong, a large proportion of the fresh vegetables consumed in the city have been traditionally grown in and around the city itself. A growing trend in many dense cities is weekend farming. Small organic farms in and around the edge of town are setting up to rent parts of their land to urbanites needing to unwind and reground themselves. There are many small spaces in and around the city that can be used for gardening. Places such as the Kaduri Farm and Botanic Garden act as reference, training, research and networking centres for sustainable urban agriculture. They organise local food events, distribute information, materials and provide training and support to local food groups in neighbourhood centres across the region. There are many ways that communities are relocalising their food systems. The 6 basic forms of community food systems are cooperatives, farmers' markets, food box systems, community farms, community gardens and school gardens. It's communities that are driving relocalisation of food, and as with many other sustainability initiatives, there are still a number of legal, political and attitudinal barriers that need to be removed or overcome to facilitate the emergence of sustainable food systems on a larger scale.
We have the prototypes, the models. What we need is the political will, the values and the political leadership.
Maleny's Maple Street Co-op is a great example of a successful food cooperative. Established by the community in the late 1970s to enable people to access good food in the area, it's now a multi-million-dollar enterprise that continues to be owned and directed by the community for the benefit of the local community